Hey, I'm your host, Lindsay Lyman. I've spent the past 11 years at one of the largest tech companies in the world. My goal is to be the EQ leader for those working in high IQ tech settings. Because without solutions to deal with the constant reorgs, bad managers, and that hum of anxiety, you're one escalation away from losing it. But there's an easier way, and I can show you how. Let's go. Hey folks, how you holding up? We have the flu in my house. It's slowly going through each of my children one by one. Knock on wood, I haven't caught it yet. Fingers crossed I don't. Yet the girls just want to be as close to me as possible while they're sick. So my hands are raw from watching them all the time. But fingers crossed I don't catch it. Okay, today I want to talk about career growth. Now don't roll your eyes, stick with me. We always talk about we grow during the hard parts. But I want to talk about how I think we're actually going about growth wrong. Because what I see over and over and over and over again with so many of my clients is they hit this phase where they've hustled and done the extra work and gone the extra mile and working the nights and weekends and grown and learned a lot and been rewarded and promoted for it. And now they are just in this burnout place because it's not sustainable. They can't maintain it. So I want to talk a little bit about growth, and there's two key elements that are required to growth, but we only really focus on the first because it's rewarded and what companies want you to focus on. As we talk about this growth, I want you to think about physical strength. If you want to go and build muscles and get physically stronger, what you have to do is you've got to find some resistance to your muscle, exercise them, like literally tear down and break down those muscles and allow them to rest. And as they build themselves back together, they build themselves back stronger. And we keep resisting and resting and building that muscle. Okay. So it's that pattern of resistance and rest that builds that strength. That is what helps you grow. Now, I want you to think about this in terms of your career. For a lot of us, we went to school, we got formal training, we joined corporate America, we've practiced. Growth has come when we've had that resistance, when we've had to stretch ourselves, do something for the first time, learn new things, try hard things. But when we're not getting the right kind of rest, we just overdo it. Physically, if you don't give your muscles rest, you can harm yourself and hurt yourself and have long-term injury and impact. And that's the same with your career. So as you think about your career and how it's grown, honestly, ask yourself, in your career growth, is it simply that it's gotten bigger? Your scope of influence, your title, your salary, your responsibilities? Has your career growth gotten bigger, or has it become stronger along the way? So I want to explain what I mean by this. And I actually think both are required. But when we talk about career growth, when I say bigger, I mean growing your capabilities and being able to do more. Growing your career to be bigger is where companies reward and encourage this type of growth. They talk about increased scope, becoming a manager, working on larger, more strategic projects. They pitch it to you as this growth opportunity and then throw it back to you that you've got to find a way to scale it and make it efficient. They reward you for the output at pretty much any cost. So I'll give you a couple examples I've seen this with. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was working at Amazon, and the team I was on, we had a call with leadership 2 times a day. Once at like 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and one around 5 or 6 Pacific Standard Time. We were in such a big crisis mode trying to support employees that were going to be working from home. And there was a lot of our systems and processes that did not work if we could not connect with people in person for a lot of different reasons. And so we were in this we need to get bigger. We need to figure out how we can do this, and we've got to solve it now. These calls happened 7 days a week without fail. What was happening is the number of people on these calls was growing more and more. And people were rewarded that volunteered, that were working these crazy hours. Yet it was never acknowledged that these people as well had kids that were no longer in school and needed support to start doing school at home, had loved ones that were at risk of different health challenges, that they too were going through a global pandemic and going through all the emotions the rest of us were. They were being rewarded for doing significantly more. And what happened, once we had put out some of those fire drills, things didn't slow down. Because now leadership saw what people were capable of doing, and that was the new expectation. So as you look at, yes, their scope increased, yes, their influence increased, it was simply getting bigger. Or I see this happening right now. As people or entire teams are getting laid off or managed out, now those people that are still working at these companies are expected to deliver on the goals that we've already established, but with less resources. We're being told, go do more. And guess what? It's going to be rewarded, people that do. And there will be people that you work with that will go all in on doubling down and doing significantly more. And it will eventually burn them out and make them resentful every time. Because when we're thinking about growth, if we're just working on that bigger part, it's not the full picture of growth. I think of the doing more, this bigger part, as like that resistance in weight training. Okay, we're adding more weight. It's harder to go and do what we need to do. So here are some signs I think you might be experiencing if you're in this bigger portion stage of growth. It's things like waking up and thinking about work immediately and checking your email before you get out of bed. It's working most nights and weekends. If you keep telling yourself, once we get through this launch, it'll slow down. Once I deliver this doc, once we get through this thing, then it's going to get better. You most likely are in this bigger phase of growth. If you find that you're getting rewarded for this extra work, if you're getting promoted, if you're getting bigger scope, and it feels exciting and proud. I'm not saying getting more money and getting a bigger title isn't worth it and that you don't deserve it. But if you find yourself getting rewarded for doing more, and then a few weeks later, feeling just as stressed out and maybe even more pressure, you haven't got the balance side of growth yet. You're just in the bigger space. It also looks like doing other people's work because they're not pulling their weight, but you're dependent on them delivering their job to do yours. It looks like going on vacation and it taking you a day or two to unwind, but also only taking a day or two for you to feel right back in that stress and anxiety once you're back at work. It looks like living for the weekends and just counting down the days, but not really feeling rejuvenated come Monday. It looks like getting the Sunday scaries and working a little bit on Sunday night to quote unquote, just get ready for the week. Okay. If you find yourself in this stage, you are growing, but you're only growing through the bigger lens. I believe growth requires that you get bigger and you get stronger. Strength comes from knowing when you're getting bigger, when you're taking on more work, when you're doing more things than you have capacity to, and having the skills to get you back to balance. If we think about it with this analogy of weightlifting, strength comes from knowing I have lifted the additional weight, I have stretched my muscles as hard as they can go, and now I'm going to rest. What does strength look like as you're trying to grow your career? And one of my many jobs at Amazon, I worked helping support internal communications. And I would get paged 24/7. There was a lot of growth that happened for myself and my team through this. We would get paged at 2 a.m. We would jump online. We would help do our thing. And we would push back on timelines of other projects that we had planned to do that day because at some point we needed to sleep. Stakeholders weren't happy. We gave them a lot of options. But at the end of the day, at some point, we just had to say no. Okay, this was us getting bigger. We had more and more to do, but we weren't able to maintain it. We couldn't keep up. So as we looked for strength and where could we get that rest so that we could rejuvenate ourselves and really grow our scope of influence, grow our ability to help drive effective internal communications, This is where we kind of focused on scaling mechanisms like creating standardized templates that enabled certain teams to drive their own internal communications. We could hire people to specifically support these emergency communications, and they would scale up when we had an issue and scale down when we didn't. We set proper expectations with stakeholders and let them know, hey, a portion of our work includes emergency communication, and when that happens, it impacts the rest of our timelines. Okay? We gave ourselves permission to rest so that we could build strength. Here's what it may look like if you are operating in your career in the strength side of things. Remember, we want to get bigger. Okay, I'm not saying you shouldn't be getting bigger, but here's what it looks like if you're getting bigger and you're giving yourself that space for the right kind of rest. Okay, that's where the strength come in. If your career is getting stronger, you're waking up and thinking about work, but you're also able to focus on how you want to start the day. You know what has to get done each day, and you stay very focused on that. You do not tell yourself you should be doing A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. When your career is really strong, you're able to acknowledge for yourself and your team things that are getting done and going well. When you have a strong career, you're able to use mechanisms appropriately without obsessing for perfection. You're able to say no without giving a reason why. You let notifications go unanswered. You're able to focus. You tell the truth. You're not just people pleasing. You don't say yes when you know you and your team don't have the bandwidth to actually deliver. You have hard conversations and you call people out when they're not doing their work. You are not trying to do it all. You prioritize people and connecting as humans along the way. When your career is really strong, you're not in a rush to get to where you want to go. You may work Sunday evenings, but because you want to, not because you quote unquote have to. When your career is strong, you are creating your own work-life balance and you own it. You don't expect your manager or your team or your company to solve it for you. You do what you say you are going to do with the commitments you promise to yourself. When your career is really strong, you might be working some nights and weekends, but it's because you agreed to it, not because you feel like you need to get more things done. You can ruthlessly prioritize unapologetically. When your career is really strong, you have very deeply rooted hobbies and interests and passions outside of work. When your career is strong, you are able to get enough sleep and to sleep well. Through my coaching program, I dig into this in so much more detail, but here's the difference in making sure you have that right kind of rest to build the strength is in your ability to deal with the discomfort and choose it on purpose. It is hard to say no. It is also really hard to keep saying yes and work crazy hours. It takes effort and practice to mentally know how to give yourself that emotional rest and stop thinking about work. It also takes effort to deal with the side effects of constantly being worried about work. It's not harder or easier when your career is strong, but it's choosing the hard parts on purpose, because the net result of choosing the hard part gets you what you want, bigger picture. It gets you balance. It gets you a well-rounded, emotionally healthy life. It gives you space and time to build healthy relationships at work and outside of work. It gives you fulfillment and value from what you're able to deliver. It gives you the ability to think and perform at your highest because it's fun and because you can, not because you're scared you're going to lose your job or get in trouble. I want to give you a couple examples of how I've seen this with myself and some of my clients. I had all three of my children while working at Amazon. At the time, I had twins that went to bed around 7 p.m. And if I didn't leave work by 4 p.m., it took me so long to pick them up from daycare and get them home to get through Seattle traffic. I would get home, feed them, and put them to bed. So what I decided was I was going to leave work every day at 4 p.m. Now, this was not an easy thing because I was the only one on my team leaving at this time. I guarantee you other people were judging me and thinking that I was a slacker and not doing my job. It was really hard for me to walk down that aisle past all of my colleagues who were there until 7 or 8 o'clock at night with my backpack on and leave for the day at 4. When I was on that team, I think I was the only one with kids as well. And so I had all of these thoughts and anxiety around, oh, they're just judging me that I am the slacker mom. None of that was true. I was doing my job. And in fact, I got promoted. But that was me choosing strength, choosing to grow in that moment, to know this is what I need to do to give myself rest, to be present, to be the kind of working parent I want to be. Or one of my clients I've been working with has just been so burnt out recently, just did the littlest thing of just not replying to Slack messages right away. She just tried sometimes even just 5 minutes, waiting 5 minutes to answer to that Slack message because all day people were pinging her. As she became more knowledgeable and more helpful and more of a leader, more and more people wanted things and wanted time from her. It was so hard and uncomfortable for her not to reply to those messages, seeing them blinking over there, seeing the red circle dot, knowing that there were things out there, people waiting to hear from her. And her brain told her this was important. She needed to reply because what if there was an emergency? What if they really did need something right away? But here's what happened. She chose the discomfort on purpose. She chose to give her brain mental rest and not reply to those messages and stay focused on the task at hand. You know what happened? People started figuring things out on their own. They stopped asking her as many questions to things they had resources to go and fix and solve themselves. Nothing bad happened. She didn't get in trouble. She didn't get fired. She was growing. She chose the 5 minutes of rest to give herself to not reply to those notifications. Strength comes in the rest, in the small daily moments of rest. It comes in balance. Growth comes in getting bigger and taking a break. Strength comes in knowing how to get yourself back to that home base, I call it, to that place where you work at your very best, where you feel your best ideas come from and you feel calm and excited and focused and driven and emotionally and psychologically safe. Strength comes when you're aware enough to know that you're too far away from that home base and that you have the tools and skills available to know how do you get yourself back to home. Strength doesn't come in staying home and staying in comfort. It comes from growing and getting bigger and knowing how do you rest to stay grounded in who you are. So tell me this, does your career feel bigger or stronger? If it only feels bigger and overwhelming and you're a little burnt out, I'd offer to you, what's something you could do to rest today in a very small way? 5 minutes is all it takes. Strength comes in the rest. Big giant vacations and time away is great and amazing, but you have to learn to have the small, daily, 5 minute at a time moments of rest. It's going to feel uncomfortable. That's okay. It means you're doing it right. Choose the discomfort on purpose. You are worth it, my friends. All right. You're amazing. Have a great week. We'll talk soon. If you listen to this podcast and feel heard and seen for the first time in a while, this is just the beginning. I offer a limited number of free coaching calls. On this call, we'll talk about what's going on and you'll leave with specific ways to start feeling better today. So listen to that inner pull and let's chat. Grab some time on my calendar before I'm booked up. To schedule a call, click the link in the show notes or go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/chat and sign up. You got this.